you know, when he gives his,
Yeah.
report, if he doesn't mention it, you can ask.
Cool.
Started the recording, David?
It is 6:30. Start recording.
It's done, it's ready.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Ready?
Yep.
You ready? All right. This is the Enfield Planning Board. It is 6:30 PM on June 28th, 2023. We are at the Enfield Public Works Facility Conference Room. And we are also on Microsoft Teams virtually. We are calling, or I am calling the meeting to order, and members present from my left.
Linda Jones.
Dan Kiley. I'm David Frack.
I'm Phil Vermeer, Brad Rich,
Tim Jennings.
Good.
Oh,
Jim Bond.
and Whitney.
Whitney Banker.
Rob Taylor.
Okay, we are short one. Eric is on vacation. Kurt's on vacation as well. So choice between.
Can't.
What?
Yeah, you go.
Select board member, we can't
Oh,
replace.
you're right. I'm sorry. Okay,
We can't what?
We cannot,
you
you
can't
cannot
replace him.
replace, you cannot put an alternate in for a select board member. The only one that can be is another select board member.
And first and alternate, so it doesn't make any difference.
Right.
yeah,
We're all here.
okay.
Oh, that's right. One, two,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6. President and accountant.
Six of us, he's the seventh.
And he's the seventh. So, we shall proceed. And we shall proceed by skipping over the select board report because he's not here. Land use,
Give it to us. He was at the
No.
meeting.
what?
No.
I
not
said
getting
Dan was
near
at the meeting.
Oh, Dan?
So
was at the
so did
meeting.
I.
I'm not gonna get it, I'm not gonna get near that one.
No.
Okay, perhaps conversation after the meeting.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Okay. Rob, you want to give your administrator's report, please?
Absolutely. I will start out by saying that, at the night of our, what was to be our first meeting of the month, I and David, we went to the regional planning annual meeting at Eastman. It was excellent. They had a, dinner and with their annual meeting where they get some business done, but it was mostly socializing and, talking to people in the commission and friends of the Regional Planning Commission. And then they had a featured speaker, or two featured speakers at the end of the evening. And it was this young couple from Southern New Hampshire named Randolph, John and Maggie Randolph. Boy, was that interesting. They put on a little presentation about what they're doing. They are in Southern New Hampshire in the Durham area, I believe it's Durham. They have a, managed care elderly facility, like nursing care. They do memory care. Kind of a big business down there. It's called Harmony Homes. It's, I don't know how many residents they have. They have a lot. So they have a lot of employees. And they're starting to notice, you know, when they have an opening for a nurse or a nurse's assistant, they put out the notice, we need help. Apply here. And they get maybe one good application out of an open position. And this is in Southern New Hampshire. And they're like, what's going on here? So they started sort of doing a little bit of research, talking to their staff. First thing the staff said, well, you gotta pay more, right? You know, and said, yeah, well.
That's always the
That's
first.
one of the things. But they sort of dig a little deeper and the staff's like, well, you know, most of us have to drive 40 miles to get to work, which is very similar to what we have here in Hitchcock or college. And then they also said, we have to go, before we come to work, we have to drive 20 miles in different direction for childcare. And so light bulb went off with these two. It's neat. She's an architect and he's kind of the guy that runs the nursing home. And they said, why don't we build our own housing for our staff? So on their campus where all of their buildings are, about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, they built a apartment complex, 20 units or so for their staff. And now they provide it as part of the benefit of working there. It's like 1/3 of the salary is housing. But it's neat because housing includes childcare. They have an on-site daycare for their staff.
Can they exclude other people from
Yeah.
wanting to rent there?
Yeah.
They can't legally.
Yep, so they prioritize it for their employees.
Yeah.
And so he said now when they advertise that same open position, they get 50 resumes. So people went, hey, man. And it was neat. They showed us, interior shots of the complex, that every unit is beautiful with, stainless steel appliances and hardwood floors or bamboo floors, or whatever it was. And every unit has on-site or in-unit washer dryer, which they insisted on. And it sort of has snowball for them. They're like, well, this is kind of a neat idea. So they bought some land in Dover. And it's like 4 acres. And when they originally got it, it was zoned for 55 and older. And they pushed on Dover a little bit, said, well, we can't even live on our own land. They're not even 55 yet. So Dover rezoned it. And now they're building a tiny house. They call them cottage development. 44 units of tiny homes, cottages, small, like less than 600 square feet with a loft. Very nice. Like, again, nice trim on the inside, stainless steel appliances, in unit washer dryer. And it's a huge hit. Again, employees are number one. They will rent if the employees don't want space. They'll rent to people off the street. But they've found that, the cottages where they're their own unit, meaning that you don't have to share a wall with anybody. It's much more quiet, less stress for people that are living there. They have veterans with PTSD. That's supposedly a big advantage of having the individual unit as opposed to being in a big building where there's a lot of noise. So we're really impressed. I got their card. We talked to them. They have been up here talking with Lebanon. They've been talking with Hanover, talking with Hitchcock. I know that our town manager has a plan to go down there with some of the Lebanon, big, wigs, the town manager, city manager, mayor and stuff from Lebanon. They're gonna go down for a tour to see this place. But they're winning all these awards. I was at my planners conference, tell you quickly about that. That was in Plymouth. The planners conference was a lot of knowledge. They had seminars to, you can take different tracks to things that interest you. That was, put on by the New Hampshire Planners Association. Got a lot of good stuff out of that, a lot of good ideas. I could talk further about that with anybody if they have any questions. So those are the two sort of highlights of the last couple of weeks. Been very busy here with people coming. There's a lot of people coming, and this is obviously peak flow. Building inspection is very, very high. He was on a build site inspection today at Brad's place. He's been right out straight with inspections, and obviously, the number of permits. I didn't get the number. I can get it for you, where we're at, but it's definitely been, above average in the last month. He's as busy as he can get.
He's very responsive, by the way, really.
He's very responsive.
Very, very responsive.
Yeah.
Which is really appreciated.
Absolutely. And that's his, I tell everybody, he is so available for you on the front end of work.
Yeah.
Work with him.
Yeah.
The only trouble anybody ever has is when they try to do it without calling.
Yeah.
Basically, they thumb their nose at the process.
Yeah.
And they start in without calling him.
Yeah.
And that's where they get into some trouble.
Yeah.
And sometimes they get mad.
Yeah.
You can't tell me what to do. Well, it's the state building code. We're enforcing it.
Yeah.
And if you work with them, it's a very easy process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the same way with me. I mean, come talk to us. We're ready to work. We really feel like we've got a great team here. We're friendly, we're responsive, professional, all those things that you want out of your staff. So, we're feeling good there. Couple of possibly big things on the horizon. You guys have heard, obviously Laramie Farms, you guys have talked to them. The property at Bob LaCroix's, it's 43 acres, now has a purchase and sale on it, 43 acres in the R4 zone, Route 4 zone. It's a real serious company. They're actually coming, they'll be in to see you guys at the second meeting in July. They're gonna be applying for design review, which is a formal application, but it's rarely have we done it since I've been here. I don't think I've done one yet.
Apartments or standalone homes?
Both. Yeah, it's 43 acres. As you guys know, that's probably our highest and best zone in terms of density. We will allow 12 units per acre. But they're gonna be in with some ideas, and of course, being that it's design review means it's a formal application where we actually will inform the abutters and they can start, the review. It's kind of like a conceptual, but it's invite the abutters
Yeah.
and get you guys to answer questions, really get digging in deep. So that could be big. That one's, that's a real company. It's a company called Chinberg. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of them.
Yeah.
I know a lot about them.
Yeah.
They're the ones that bought the old mill on Water Street in Claremont next to Common Man. They did 95 apartments in there and rented them like that. They're beautiful, high ceiling. It's the old mills, you know, with the beautiful windows and everything. They also bought the Moody Building in Claremont, which is a giant commercial space down there. They've also bought, in Claremont, what was called the Student Conservation Association, SCA.
Yes.
It's actually right on the Claremont Charlestown line on the River Road. 26 acres, they're talking about housing down there. And if you go south and check them out online, CHINBURG, they have 30 developments in New Hampshire, including a lot of old mills. That's what originally brought them to town. I talked to one of their guys 4 years ago about the Baltic mills they were interested in.
Please, wouldn't that
Tim
be?
Taylor doesn't want to sell it, doesn't want to talk to anybody, so, they, you know, they sort of went away. I said, well, there are some pieces of land, and it's interesting, they do have another division in the company that's raw land. And that's what these guys are working on, it's the raw land people to talk to us. So you'll see, I mean, I don't got anything in hand. I mean, they've come in and talked very loosely, some ideas, what can and can't be done from the zoning's perspective. They've got lawyers and architects and engineers and, you know, they were pouring over your guys' minutes from the Laramie Farms discussion. So they've read the articles and, you know, they're very familiar with us, they're familiar with the region, familiar with the state of New Hampshire, so, could be big, we'll see. You'll see it too when, as soon as I get the application, we'll be sending it around to you. Design review. And again, it's a lot of, zoning's been very busy. We had 3 variance hearings not last month, this month, June 13th. They all were approved. They'll be in for a special exception, for an applicant next month. So zoning's been fairly busy.
Could you characterize those variances?
Almost 99% of what I deal with are the area variances. So it's setback intrusion.
Mhm.
And these were well done applications, not necessarily professionally done, but well done in terms of, one guy he's a kitchen designer, so he has some CAD software. He was able to do a really nice map and show us. It was very minor intrusion on Algonquin. It's right next to the Fish and Game boat ramp.
Yep.
So yeah, area variances, that continues to be, as we go forward with any zoning updates, I would love to talk about how to sort of overcome that as a challenge. I mean, because I have a colleague in Plainfield, he's the zoning administrator out there. I've done more zoning variances since I've been here for 4 years than he has. He's been there for 32 years at Plainfield.
Yeah.
So it's mostly because we have non-conforming lots.
Driven by the
lakes.
lakes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in those cases, you get 3 different setbacks. You get the street
Correct.
setback, the side lot setbacks, and the water setback.
setback.
And a lot of these lots,
Are
half
50
an
feet
acre.
wide.
yeah.
They're 50 feet
Yeah,
wide and you're
a third of an acre. I don't know,
Right.
how many acres is your lot?
0.4.
0.4 is
Yeah.
this, yeah.
And so we end up doing this a lot of
Yeah.
variances. And it's hit and miss. I mean, sometimes the zoning board's in the mood to talk. Other times they're not in the mood to. They denied a variance in May, for a woman who wanted to put one of those little prefab Amish built sheds for their lawn and garden equipment on the Knox River right by Proctor's. That really pretty place that's, the Hershey's fixed up. Fatal error they made, they said during the hearing that they wanted to store their gasoline in that little shed. And I think everybody's like, you know, I can see that thing floating down the Knox River on a flood. Of course, those things aren't anchored. They ended up, the zoning board threw them a lifeline and said, we'll hear it again if you want, we'll continue it. They wanted some expertise to come in and tell them that it was gonna be okay, but the people actually withdrew the application and walked away from it. I felt a little bad about it, but like I said, it's kind of hit and miss if you're gonna get your variance. I mean, you gotta, supposed to be the individual characteristics of the lot that dictate whether a variance is granted. I always say the classic is, it's a small lot. Well, we had one on Depot.
Yes, on Depot.
Right.
Mhm.
That lot was so small with the Mascoma River setback, the street setback, and the side lots. Literally, they could build a dollhouse. There was like
Right.
4 feet square that they could actually
Right.
build it. So he had to have a variance there, and that would, to me, is one that I will use in
Yeah,
the future.
The hardship.
There you go. If they can't build in the setback,
Right.
the lot is worthless.
Didn't he have an existing footprint though?
He did, but he tore it down and it was down for more than 12 months.
Floods. Yeah.
And, so. the Big house going up on it right now.
Yeah.
And some people are like,
I've watched.
wow, that's the Taj Mahal, but. It's gonna be a nice single family home on Depot Street when they get all done. I think
Beautiful.
it'll be nice, yeah. But any questions, throw them at me, obviously available.
Roller rink sign.
So he has promised me he's gonna take it down. Drew Hitchcock.
When?
But
He's
he's now gonna-
cleaning the grass now around the feet of it.
Exactly.
Such an improvement.
So he's advertised, he's trying to hire a landscaper, so he's put a sign out where he's put the letters on hiring
Do you
landscaper.
have a feel why he's not removing it?
So Tom Hersey still owns it. And I think Tom has told him, don't take that out because there's grandfathering rights associated with that.
Yeah,
But I've
that's
told him-
gone.
I've told him, we'll let you have a sign.
Right,
You know, you can have a
exactly,
Of
sign.
course.
Get rid of the ugly sign. That's what we
Right.
need. That's what I want. And he's told me, oh yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. But he can't, right now he's kinda, so he's gonna need a favor out of us pretty soon, because he wants to put another business in the back there, as you guys know.
Right.
That may or may not require additional site plan.
Is it appropriate for you to mention, hey, the planning board was asking what's going on with the sign or?
Yeah, I did when I told him I wanted that sign
I
out of
think you
there.
should do it again.
Cause you know who else is, Kurt, he hates that sign.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk to him if he wants to talk. Maybe I'm not allowed to, but, come on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Send
mean,
him an email that we'll give him a sign, you know, with certain dimensions, but get rid of
No,
that thing.
it's, I mean, it's in a zone that you can have a sign, you can have
why
a
don't
stuff.
you invite him to come in with his sign plan?
Yeah, yeah, you could do that. All he needs is a signed permit from me. I mean, I issue signed permits all the time, so.
Yeah.
But I'll keep working on it. And you guys know that this,
We'll get there.
this job's slow
We'll
and
get there.
steady.
We'll get
We're not the hare with the tortoise. So we'll work on it. And as I said, he'll need something soon. And I want to say, oh, really? Okay. Get rid of that sign. We'll talk.
Yeah.
So,
I wanted to circle back to the regional planning dinner that you and I went to.
Yep.
Decent buffet,
that's the important stuff.
chicken or salmon, I think it was. But more importantly, a couple of points that the keynote speakers made that I think is important.
Yeah.
They designed their little small house community with the idea of making it a real community. You know, there's backyards that face each other and
It's like a green.
a little, front porches that you can sit out on. And, you know, they're not just concerned with, let's see how many small houses we can fit in on our X number of acres. And the other thing, and Rob, you're gonna have to back me up on my number here. They are building these houses for, I think, $130,000 each.
Yep.
Which
So the
I
way
thought
he's
was
doing that,
pretty good.
you'll be interested in this.
I know him.
He's doing it himself.
Yeah. He's had his own construction.
Right, so when he first put it out to bid, he got these huge numbers, like, we can't afford it. And he said, you know what? He hired 4 guys, he bought an excavator, and they built it.
Are these attached to the ground or are they on wheels?
Slabs.
No, they're attached. to slabs.
Yep.
Yep.
Underground utilities.
So what, not having heard the presentation, I can only assume, but the thing that comes into my mind when I hear your description, what you're talking about is we need to make sure that whatever our zoning ordinance ends up being in the end, that it doesn't try to make things like this happen. What it does is, I think, it needs to allow things like this to happen.
Yes.
Yeah,
This is some creativity that,
Exactly.
you don't want to write into the ordinance how this is supposed to work and et cetera. They must have porches that people can sit,
Right,
stuff
right.
like that.
Yeah.
So I hope if someone wanted to do something like that, they would find that they could do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was the square footage on those?
I believe it was 550 on the first floor, and there is a loft of about 110 upstairs. So they technically, they can be 2-bedroom. But it's a tight squeeze. But it's interesting, they talk about the young people. And I thought he had a great point. The guy that was making the presentation, he's like, we really don't need to worry about, the original zoning here was 55 and older. He's like, we don't need to worry about 55 and older. We got plenty of those in the state.
Exactly.
He's like, we need 25.
Yeah.
We need
Right.
25, 30,
Yeah.
we need young people to come
Yeah.
in. And this is sort of incubative housing that gets people started in the community. And it will be there for, if these people
Until they
live
have a
there for
baby.
10 years, have a baby, and
Right.
we'll buy a bigger place,
Yeah.
Got it up
somebody
on the
else can
screen.
move in.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it.
They were
Okay.
very impressed. They were first class.
they put,
Randolphs.
they put on a good show.
Yeah.
A good presentation.
Yeah.
Moving along, let's do minutes from May 24. Anyone have any corrections, comments, changes?
Make a motion that we accept the minutes as is.
Motion
second.
made and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
All right, we have 2 abstentions and 1, 2, 3.
I took vote yes.
You vote yes?
Yes.
Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and
That's it.
2 abstentions.
that's it.
4 and 2.
Okay. Next, public hearings. Land use case P 23-06-02. Timothy and Heidi Daly are seeking minor subdivision approval to create 2 lots from one that they own on Jones Hill Road, map 15, lot 30-1. Existing parcel is 10.11 acres. Excuse me. And this request is to create 1 lot of 3.01 acres and another 7.09. Scott Sanborn of Cardigan Mountain Land Surveys LLC is representing the Dalys in this matter. Scott, I have to read you your rights. You are entitled to a hearing with the full board, which we don't have tonight. Do you want a full board hearing on
I'm
this?
perfectly happy with the folks that are here this evening.
Okay, so Scott, go ahead and tell us what's going on here, please.
Thank you, David. You covered a couple of the basics. This property is on the easterly side of Jones Hill Road, not too far up from the Canaan Town line. It is, about half open field and about half wooded, open field being off of Jones Hill Road. It consists mostly of gentle to moderate slopes, and completely presently undeveloped. And so the proposal is for a lot of 3.01 acres, shown as lot 1 on the plan. Has frontage of 125 feet on Jones Hill Road. And then lot 2 is going to be 7.09 acres, has frontage of 111.3 feet. And it has a minimum width of 100 feet to stay in compliance with the zoning ordinance. The R3 district course, is a 3 acre minimum, so lot one meets that. The lot one required New Hampshire, Department of Environmental Service approval, and we have obtained that. I believe you have a copy of that already, Rob. We did test pits on both lots to demonstrate suitable areas for septic disposal. This is very simple and straightforward. There's no wetlands in the field or the areas that would potentially be used for residential development back in the woods. There is an area of poorly drained soils that runs down through the lot, but, leaves more than ample room to work with the front section. And I think the only other real item of interest, with this is that lot one, while it could have its own driveway entrance, this is basically becoming a small family compound. The, owner's daughter lives, just down the hill, and I believe it's 232 Jones Hill Road. Lot one, I believe, is going to a son who's intending to build on it, and then, dad, Timothy, and mom, Heidi, are keeping lot two. So rather than build another driveway, there's already an existing field access road, which is, quite well constructed, and they're gonna improve that to the driveway, and so we've built an easement into the plan so that lot one will use that same driveway access, so we won't even be looking at another, driveway cut off of Jones Hill Road. It's not to say lot one couldn't do their own driveway at some point in time if they wanted to, but since they will be using it, at least for the time being, so we've shown that easement on the plan. I believe that's the highlights of it. I'll be happy to take any questions from the board.
Board members, any questions?
I'm just curious what this arc here that says SB means.
Oh, it's in the key, Linda. It's a boundary between the different soil types. That's actually in the upper left where you see,
Oh,
it says soil types. Do you?
oh, yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Um,
Soil bounds.
so it's a soil boundary, and that is, the DES, it's a general soil type that's mapped on a kind of a large scale basis,
Mhm.
county to county, and, DES uses data from those soil types to help calculate the minimum lot sizes along with some other factors. So that's why we show that on the plan.
And just for reference, I've got it highlighted yellow up there. See Jones Hill,
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously down here is Lock Haven, and we are right here.
Yeah.
Yep, it's the public works lot right there.
So, what does our land use regulations say? Or do they even address, shared driveways?
Could have two share
To share on a driveway,
Of the driveway.
private drive.
Yep.
on a private.
Once we get to three, then you have to go up to basically the town spec.
That could go down spec for the road.
Do we need a driveway maintenance agreement? I know it's family, but looking further down the road.
I don't think we can.
We
require it.
we can't require it.
I think
Oh,
that
we
would
could.
have to be in their
It's
deeds.
in their
And there's,
Yeah, they will require, it. I think
The
they
easements,
It's required for a private road with
Right.
three or more.
Okay.
That's a requirement of your regulations.
right, but for a driveway,
For a simple driveway, it's really up to the two
Okay.
owners to work it out, is my understanding.
Is there
Any other-
there? You said
any
there's
other
a-
questions or comments?
Sounds straightforward to me.
Yeah. Is there any, butter comments?
There's no abutters here?
Check out mine here, hold on.
no,
I believe Mr. Daly
that's it,
is,
just the dailies on.
Oh, the online is Taylor, says, daughter.
yeah, and I don't, sure I recognize the last name, but yes, her daughter is Taylor, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
hazard, I guess that's who that is.
Yeah.
Hey, Rob, can you guys hear us?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll turn the camera on. We're not abutters, but we live up the hill on Jones Hill Road. We know Sage and
Oh,
Taylor.
Different Taylor.
Oh,
We were
okay.
just
Different
listening in.
Taylor.
Different Taylor.
Right.
Yep,
I know you. Yes.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
no
Did you
comments
have
from
any?
us.
No comments, okay.
No, sounds
Okay.
great.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. let's close the public hearing. And somebody want to make a motion?
Make a motion that we, approve this as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? You got it, Scott.
Thank you very much.
You have a-
I think I made the right decision, talking with the folks that were here.
Scott, do you have a Mylar here?
I have a Mylar and I have a check for the L-chip fee, and also a check for your fee.
I'd be very happy to,
You have the L-chip.
well, I can sign the Mylar, he doesn't have to be here for it. Okay,
Well, thank you very much for your time and attention.
thank you for coming
I'm working on
in
it.
and doing your.
I'm working on something for her too.
Excellent. Okay.
There's a lot on the list.
Wait a minute.
I don't have no need for them.
All right,
Dave, could I ask a quick question?
you certainly can.
Last month, we discussed a site visit on Bog Road. Did that ever happen?
She withdrew the application. She is making some fairly significant changes.
Yeah, I know.
And she was not ready yet to
And,
come in and
I'm
talk
very
to
anxious,
us.
to give you a shout and get more.
And that's why it's not on the agenda, and that's why there was no site visit. But rest assured, when she comes in with an application, we will do a site visit and Rob will send you, send all of us reminders to be at the site visit, probably half an hour before meetings start. Okay, I'll do it after, after the meeting is adjourned. We have no conceptuals, no new business. Let's see, update on the zoning ordinance rewrite project. Contract with Place Sense is where as of today, Rob?
Contract has been executed with basically the town and New Hampshire Housing. So basically countersigned by both parties. Ed Morris, town manager, signed it with select board blessing. And so the contract is ready. Now we need to start the work. So we
Has
got,
Randy signed it yet?
I had not, so we have a grant from the state, so she doesn't have to sign that. We have to,
No, we have to have a contract with her.
let me go grab it.
Cause they approved her at the select board meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, she's gotta get.
she's gotta have a contract,
She's gotta get a contract to us.
or we have to get a contract to her.
So she's gonna be,
She's the contractor.
she's gonna be contracted to help us with the zoning.
Yes.
Right,
Is she also going to be contracted to help us with the master plan?
yes.
Yes.
So assume the town manager reviews those contracts and
He does,
ultimately approves them. And
yeah.
yes, do we have a role in looking at the scope or anything? You must have seen them.
I have not seen the current contract with Place Sense or the zoning rewrite. I have a very good idea of the scope of work. And we all have seen the schedule, which is essentially a restatement of the scope of work. It's just moving the paperwork along that sometimes doesn't go as quickly as we want. What's this?
Morris. Ben Frost.
Right.
Right,
This is the town's contract
to accept the grant.
with,
That's what I'm talking
with the grant. But we need a contract
With
with
Place.
our contractor who's gonna be
Right.
doing the work.
Right.
So hopefully that'll move along quickly.
She knows she's got it, right?
I believe she does.
Yes, here's the Brandy place that's rare. Yes.
Yeah, she wrote a letter that, basically acknowledged that she was gonna be the contractor. And the anticipated start date is July first. I don't know if we're gonna legally have have her contract in place by then, but
Probably have to.
what we wanna do is have her at the, first meeting in July. Will be sort of a kickoff meeting. She'll tell us exactly what she's gonna do, when she's gonna do it, how she's gonna do it, and what our role as board members will be in the process. So a lot of things have to fall into place between now and second week of July, so it happens. Rules of procedure discussion. Town manager Ed Morris has reached out to say that he had some, concerns regarding some of the proposed language. Some of the concerns are legal in nature, and he requested that he be present at the meeting to give us his input. He couldn't make it tonight, so I think we should, postpone it. I think that's a reasonable request.
I do too, but I'd like to suggest a more efficient way to handle that. Why don't you and I and Rob meet with him independently? Find out what he suggests we write into the thing or change. Make those drafted changes, then bring all that forward, and then if there's anything in there that we even find.
Personally, I'd like to be part of that discussion, just out of curiosity.
I think we should all hear what
Yeah,
it is,
yeah,
because
yeah.
it will affect things in the future, that when we hear that again, we'll know that's not what we should do.
Well, I understand, but what I'm
Well-
saying is that the wording we proposed has just been sort of ad hoc comments from people put together in some sort of wording so that we had something to start with. So it's still in a very, very draft form, and I feel like if there's a couple of changes that we need to make, and we could just quickly do those, I'll bring you back the next draft form. And.
I barely digested this other thing.
Well, I'm sure.
In fact,
Until we get through the
I haven't.
discussion of it, we really won't have an idea of where we're going, but.
Well, let me say, as a practical matter, Ed is out of the country for a couple of weeks. So the chances of having a meeting with him, if he were to take such a meeting and, having that before our next board meeting are, I think, close to nothing, aren't they, Rob? Given his travel schedule?
This weekend, maybe go for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Vacation.
Spain. So, I think having him show up here at our next meeting, that's, we want to talk to Brandy first, and then we can talk about this.
Would you like to invite Brandy to our next meeting?
Well, yeah, wasn't that the plan?
Awesome.
It is the
It
plan.
is, man.
Okay, so, we'll postpone that discussion to, a future meeting, hopefully our next meeting, if Ed is in fact back in town. Next, multiple family dwellings on one lot discussion. Kurt and Tim have looked at our zoning regs, and they essentially question what they mean. And I want to emphasize that this is going to be a very general discussion. It does not involve any particular plot of land. It does not involve any particular developer or proposal that we may or may not have heard any rumors about or had any discussions about. And if I feel that the discussion is straying too far off of the general, I'm gonna jump in and try to pull it back. And Dan, if you feel it's straying too far off, kick me and I'll jump in and pull the discussion back. So that having been said, Tim and Kurt have drafted a rather lengthy analysis, which I think is, you know, a very, very in-depth.
You guys all got it, right? We sent that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our homework was to read through it before this meeting,
Yes,
which we did.
right, okay. You're speaking for everybody. Okay. Yep. Telepathic. So Tim, why don't you, give a synopsis or however you'd like to present the discussion.
Yeah, well, we all know our zoning ordinance is imperfectly written. I mean, not that they could ever be perfect, but ours is particularly poorly written. Yes, and so it's always a question of when you read through these things, what does it say? Not what we want it to say, what we think we remember it said, or what does it say? What do the words actually mean? And this all got started when we were thinking about that quarter acre zoning change that we did last year in the R1 district. And I frankly supported that because I didn't think that was going to significantly change anything in terms of how a multifamily project might be proposed in the town, or how we would deal with that. The way I read the ordinance it's not going to change that. It would only affect, say, a lot where we're going to subdivide it and maybe put single family homes on or something like that. And so later, as we got to starting to, I guess, being pressed a bit to deal with some conceptuals and whatever about multifamily housing, the comment was made that it depends on the lot size, how many units you can put in there. It's like, oh gosh, that's not how I understood this to read.
So that's the question, depends on the size of the lot or how many units you could put.
Yes, and it's a very limited, specific set of circumstances. It's only, we think, questionable. And there's really two issues here. Well, let me just get the first one out of the way was, how many multifamily homes can you put on dwellings? Try to use that. Dwellings can you put on one lot? Bona fide deeded lot. And the second question was, once you determine that, then how many housing units can you put in a multifamily dwelling? In the R1 district, if the lot is served by municipal sewer. So those are the two questions. And if you read through our analysis of it, I think it's a matter of, at this point, is the argument sound that we made, or did we leave out something? Is there a point that we missed?
I'd like to hear from you what you think the issue is. I think I know what you think the issue is, but I'm not sure. So if you could lay it out, what you think the problem is, or the issue, or
That's in his conclusion statement. I looked at that.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to respect the boundaries you set for us.
It's not easy.
It isn't easy, but, if we recently, that's maybe not the best way to say that.
There's a 30-acre lot out there that it's a hypothetical 30-acre lot.
Okay. And someone wanted to put, let's say 6 apartment buildings on that one. And we'll make it 8.
make it 8.
Okay. So the question is without a variance,
Right.
Right,
could someone do that on a 30-acre parcel, put a separate building on a 30-acre parcel?
8 separate buildings.
Yeah.
On a 30-acre lot.
In the R1 district with municipal sewer, let's keep that's always
Right.
the framework.
On the sewer, yeah.
Talking about.
Are these single-family buildings or multi?
No, they're multi-family.
they're multi,
And how many?
up to, he can go up to 130 units.
Now,
It's 30 acres, I'm sorry, 120 units.
Well, clearly, you could subdivide that lot into 8 separate lots.
You could.
Right.
Right,
But, and Rob, I may be incorrect about this, but I think your interpretation is that they could put the 8 lots or the 8 buildings on one lot.
Mhm.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
So see, there's an interpretation.
And
problem
you're
about-
saying this, that
It has
the way the language is written, it does not allow that.
Correct. We think the ordinance requires the 30-acre lot to be subdivided into 8 parcels.
Right.
And you put one single family or multifamily building on each of those.
Right. And so the question is that correct? And 2, is that what we want it to read?
No,
no,
it's not, no. The question of, is that what we want to read will come up when we do the zoning rewrite or consider any further zoning amendments. Because it's, once we determine what it says, read it. Either you can put more than one on one lot or you can't.
Right.
Then that's the way Rob will have to deal with any of the proposals.
Right.
Until we change.
Gotcha.
So that's the first.
right,
It's the easier of the two to, we think, ascertain what the answer is. And we think it's more clear. So, if you've read our analysis and you feel like you're,
Lost?
Yeah.
okay, if you're lost,
I had
we'll
trouble,
have to go through that item by item.
I had trouble following it. You know, I have a college degree, but honest to God, I had trouble following it. And maybe it's my inexperience because I've only been doing this for, 8 months.
the crux of the question is the word dwelling. In the the ordinance, the word dwelling is not dwelling, it's dwellings. Is it a plural dwellings? Or possessive? My belief is it's plural.
Rob, could you put it up?
Let's see the
Yeah,
zoning ordinance.
Yeah,
if we're gonna go through this argument item by item, then we need to.
we need to have it up there, yeah.
Yeah. Is that all?
Not the zoning ordinance, the memo I wrote, Kurt and I.
Oh. I have to grab that. I got that in the ordinance.
Well, who has copies?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Why don't we go around the table, start with, Brad and Bill,
And do what?
comments?
Your comment.
Oh, well, I think I've already stated, my comment. I think I understood what you and Kurt were trying to say, but I had trouble following every single change, and maybe that's just me.
So, and Lindy, do you have a copy of our memo? Okay. And I don't know if you have a color copy, but,
No.
I do. I've got another one here. I've got another color copy.
but I did italicize the zoning.
I mean, that wasn't the issue. I can read lighter gray.
Okay,
Let's wait until,
Everybody's
Dan
back.
and Rob come back, so we're all up to speed with the discussion.
I understand the intent, but I really want to understand exactly what you were
it's
pointing at.
not easy. this wording was more precise.
Yeah.
It would not be a difficult question.
Right.
I think the one that said top secret looked interesting.
Linda, you're thinking my kind of.
What's the downside? Like as you feel like it's currently written, what sort of negative?
We're kind of neutral on that. I mean, again, when we decide what it says, we may have further opinions about should we change this or not.
Right.
I think we're just anxious because of the inevitable development pressures that we're going to see, and Rob's hinted at those.
Sure.
That we better get this right.
Yeah.
And,
Before the onslaught begins.
yeah,
Phil, Brad, you
I'm
finished?
good, yeah. I, first of all, I'm saying, this is good information for Brandy, when she starts working the new zoning regulations.
Mhm, absolutely.
You know, good analysis for that. And secondly, when I go to your conclusion and you say there's no established maximum number of dwellings per lot in R1, that's on the sewer, the town sewer. But then you list setback requirements, parking requirements. Doesn't that limit the number of dwellings?
it certainly does.
And if all those are met, isn't that what the current zoning ordinance tries to accomplish in this town when it comes to consolidation? Or what's the term?
Density.
Density.
Well, again, I'm trying to shy away from what we wanted to say, what we needed to say in the future, but to focus on really, what does it say?
What
right
does
now?
it say and is that what we want?
No,
Right.
No, it's just, what does it say?
What does it say?
What does it say?
According to,
So-
Not what do we want?
according
What
to
do we want is
according to your
next.
conclusion, though, you're saying what it really says is there is no established number for the amount of dwellings on R1 district that's on town sewer.
in a multifamily building.
In a multifamily building, right?
That's what we think it says, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a total number of units you can do on the size of a lot. It doesn't say whether they can be on one lot or it has to be subdivided, so there's only one building on a lot.
Well, we think actually that question is very clear. Let me walk you through. So Kurt, if you scroll up there just a little bit, we can see where we at, go down, sorry.
Initial questions.
So in blue, I've simply copied and pasted the definitions and the wording right out of the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
So I did that so you wouldn't have to flip back to the zoning ordinance.
yeah.
Right, so note the word dwelling definition building containing a dwelling unit or dwelling units, plural. So a dwelling could be a single family home or a multifamily home or two-family home,
Right.
which are further described as we scroll down. Or scroll up. So there's the definitions of those terms.
Right.
So go on down. Now, the R1 district is, when you go to section 400.1, first sentence is right there. You can do, land may be used in buildings erected, for the following purposes. A, one family, two family, and multifamily dwellings and manufactured homes on individual lots. And I think, Rob, this is where you and I diverge right here. So we're saying the plural word dwellings is not particular to the phrase multifamily, but refers to all three uses standing before that second comma.
I see the second.
Yeah. And so you scroll down a bit. And so if you wanted to look at what I suggested here is take out the section about multifamily homes, and what does that sentence say? One family, two family, and multifamily dwellings. And so, initially, that I think is the stumbling block. It's been thought to say that, going back up to A, the blue line, one family, two family, comma, and multifamily dwellings. But we don't think the sentence is written that way. It's proper grammar. You don't have to have a comma after the word two family. So what we think it's saying is that dwellings is not plural. In other words, it doesn't mean you can have more than one multifamily building on one lot.
Saying you can have option 1, option 2, or option 3 of those 3 options.
Right.
Yeah, well, we do too. And
Okay.
so, Linda, so how many single family homes can you put on one lot?
4.
No, one lot that's not been subdivided.
Four.
What's the size of the,
Well, doesn't matter.
it does matter.
Well, let's say it's,
R1 is, if it's in an R1, it does matter.
let me back up. I'm confining this too much. The lots served by municipal sewer. So
Yep.
all that we're gonna talk about tonight is served by municipal. sewer.
Right.
All right. It's also in the R1 district. So under our current zoning, the way we just amended it, you can have as small as a 1/4 acre lot.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, so on that 1/4 acre lot, how many multifamily homes can you put on it?
1,
One.
Okay, how many two-family homes can you put on it?
2,
How many multifamily homes?
As many as
3
a lot
plus
will hold.
1 plus an auxiliary dwelling unit.
Well, the ADUs apply to all 3 of these scenarios. So let's leave those out for a bit. They do kind of complicated.
Well, I would,
I'm saying, if you meet the setback, you meet the height restrictions and you got parking for everybody,
Right,
that's how many you're gonna have.
right.
Now, I didn't ask the question of how many dwelling units in the multifamily home.
You're asking how many individual buildings?
Yes. Now, to further amplify that, if you scroll down a bit, Rob.
There again, if you meet all the
A little
requirements,
further,
you can have as many buildings as you want.
Right,
look at section U of 401. No lot shall have more than one principal building. Now, we just amended that
right.
this spring.
Yep.
So we think section U and section A combined together clearly says that you can only have one principal building on each lot. If you look back up to the section A up there, man, it's telling you that,
What's a principal building?
well, there's a definition of it. Hold up. Let's see. Principal building means one apartment building a lot, not to say one big apartment building and one smaller apartment building. Now, that's our interpretation.
Right, that's your interpretation. That's not what that's not the ordinance.
Right.
That's your interpretation of the ordinance.
But if you look at the section J, accessory uses, accessory building, you gotta take all these three sections together. So our conclusion is, it was never intended for more than one, on an individual lot. in the R1 district serve a municipal sewer, that we were gonna have, that we were gonna permit more than one principal building, more than one apartment building.
Let me jump in here for a sec. I think we have to look at the intent of whoever it was that wrote the ordinance. And to do that, I want to jump down to use B, which is cemeteries, churches, and places of formal worship. How many cemeteries are you gonna put on a lot? How many churches are you gonna put on a lot? Go down to C. How many home occupations subject to the provision of section 404 are you gonna put on a lot? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm tending to side with Tim in that the perceived intent of the ordinance is for a single building. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But just, putting it in the context of the way the rest of the R1 district ordinance is written and the R3 district, they all use plurals to describe what the allowed uses are. Farm stands, fairs. What else? Non-commercial outdoor recreational activities, they're all plural. So I think that Tim and Kurt's interpretation does have some merit when you look at it from, with a strict grammatical reading of the ordinance and comparing it with the way other allowed uses are written. Clearly, if it went to court, I think a judge would say, well, the way it's written is one building per lot. Maybe I'm wrong.
Plus the ADU effect.
Plus an ADU, plus an accessory building like a shed or a garage or whatever.
And
Just for clarification, you can't have an ADU with multifamily, right? You can't have an ADU with a duplex, right?
Cause that makes three.
Right, so.
It's only on single family.
The ADU interpretation that I've always used, and it's
A
coming from
single
the state,
family, yeah.
is single family. You can have an ADU for a single family
Okay.
residence.
we didn't attempt to address that directly. You're probably right. I don't have any objection to that.
So, looking at this interpretation and assuming that it's correct. Just hypothetically, let's assume it's correct. Does that actually, in the real world, limit a developer to one building per lot, requiring a large lot to be subdivided? Or can the developer obtain a variance? And would the ZBA then allow a developer to put more than one multifamily building on a large lot? Hard to predict what the ZBA would do, but my sense is that you can make a case, a good case, for it makes sense
To do it that way.
to cluster things that way, as long as you don't.
Or the way the developer would get around it, they'd make one giant building and connect it.
150
Well, yeah,
apartments in one building.
yeah, but but that's,
Right.
Yeah,
that's aesthetically perhaps not.
Right, we
pleasing,
Well, no, but would be.
But would be legal.
Right, would be
Yeah.
legal. The other thing is, the reason, from my point of view, you know why I don't want 6 apartment buildings on 6 separate lots? Because that means you can have 6 separate owners. Because they can then sell off a lot with
With the
50,
building.
with 50, a building, and then
that
all.
shouldn't concern us at all.
Yes, it should.
Yeah, it should. It should, because you brought up with that subdivision, is there a agreement on the driveway? Well, now it's an agreement on all of the infrastructure.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. I mean, if, I think, whether or not who owns the buildings is going to get, after the project's over and done with in the next 50 years of its life, that
Right.
can change dozens of times.
It can, but if it's all on one lot, then it's only one owner.
Well, why would you want to restrict a developer to do that if he didn't want to do that?
I'm not gonna restrict him if he doesn't want to do it. He wants to subdivide, he can.
Well, what we're
Okay,
saying, our
But I'm
ordinance,
saying, are
our
we
ordinance says-
restricting him by telling me he has to subdivide?
what we think the situation is right now is our ordinance says that he has to subdivide unless he goes for a variance.
Right.
We're completely in agreement with that.
Right.
So if the developer comes in, we need to tell him that one of the things you're going to have to do, a long list of things you may need a variance for, but one of them is you're going to need a variance to put all of your buildings on one lot.
Right.
Or if you don't want to go for the variance, and you got to figure out a way to subdivide the land.
I think.
Well, no, he doesn't have to get a variance to subdivide.
No, he
He'll
has to
get a
figure out how
variance
to
Have it on
subdivide
one
it
lot.
according to our subdivision regulations.
He doesn't have to get a variance to subdivide.
No, I didn't say he did.
Right.
I think we're saying the same.
We're saying the same thing. If he wants to keep it on one lot, he has to get the variance, is what you're saying.
If he wants to put 6 buildings on one lot, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
If he wants to do what I'm saying, I guess, which personally, I'd rather see everything on one lot. I'll tell you why. Because you can do better innovative housing.
Yes.
Because now I don't have to, if I've got 6 5-acre lots, then all I'm gonna do is put 6 buildings on it. If I've got 30 acres, that is 30 acres, maybe in this corner,
Yeah.
I can put 20 affordable housing units.
Yep.
And next to it, senior care.
Yep, yep.
So I've used up 40 of my units.
Right.
I can then put townhouses.
Yeah.
I can put condos. I
Greenery.
can put whatever I want
So.
in order to pay for that affordable housing.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that, and
Right.
but that's what we want. The
Right.
ordinance to eventually say when we rewrite it. That's not what it says now. So what we need to
Yeah,
direct the developers is that if you want to do 6 buildings on a 30 acre, you're gonna have to subdivide it unless you get a variance. That should be instructions to the developer.
Well, he's gonna find that out, if he comes to us for a conceptual. Perhaps going forward, that might be something that Rob might bring up. But it doesn't seem to me that this is an insurmountable problem because the
No.
option of variance is there.
So I would just mention one of the 5 criteria that the ZBA looks at is that the spirit of the ordinance is observed. So I feel like the way it's worded as like a single principal building, based on what I see at the zoning board, I would feel it is unlikely that they might be able to justify a variance. Just something to consider. That is one that like hangs them up a lot, is the spirit of the ordinance being observed.
But we can't interpret our ordinance the way we want it to. We want it we have to interpret the way it is.
Do we all agree at this table that the language is clear? That it's one dwelling per lot? Cause that's what you're saying.
One
One
principal
building
One
per
principal
lot.
building.
I'm sorry, one what?
One principal.
One building.
One principal building.
And the building could have X number of dwelling units within it.
Right, right.
Rob?
So, I mean, this all got started with discussions that we've had, Tim and I and David. My interpretation of it is different than his.
Right.
My interpretation of it is if they meant it to be one building, then it should have read one family, two family, and a multifamily building right there.
Right.
But instead it's double plural, multifamily dwellings with an S on the end. So that's my interpretation there. Now, you guys, I was supportive of putting this on the agenda today, because I wanted to hear your feedback from me, because ultimately, it's my call. This is called an administrative decision, which is appealable, by the way.
Right.
Whatever I say here, and I'm gonna say what you guys tell me to here, because I put a lot of stock in what you guys want. But if I say something and you don't agree, or Joe Schmo off the street doesn't agree, they can challenge it. It's appealable to the zoning board. And the zoning board hears appeals of administrative decisions, which is to, basically set out in the RSAs of New Hampshire for how you handle what I have said as an interpreter of the rules of the ordinance. So I would like some guidance from you, and I'm happy to, you guys debate right here. Maybe we don't make the decision tonight. And ultimately, the town manager has also said, if we do have an application in hand, he didn't want me going to the legal counsel with hypothetical.
Right.
So that's kind of a waste of our money.
Right, because,
But if we do actually have something in our hands, we can take it to our legal counsel and say,
right,
what do you think?
what do you think?
And we prefer not to have an appeal by the planning board of your decision to the CBA, right?
Well, the appeals to zoning board.
The appeal, yeah, if
It's
if
the
one of
zoning
you
board.
guys is making
We
the
can't.
appeal, then you would have to recuse yourself for whatever else
That's
happens
right.
in the future.
Right.
Because you sort of come down on one side or the other.
Right.
Obviously, anybody in town withstanding, I think.
Withstanding, which will be in a butter.
So you're saying that if we voted tonight to agree on an interpretation of what we're talking about, one
I'll
way
go
or the
with
other,
that from here going forward. Absolutely.
Right.
you're gonna go with.
Yep.
Okay.
But I will, like I said, so a couple things that I'm pointing out, and I hate to be right down in the nitty gritty, but I think, you got two things at play. You got the, appeals go to Superior Court, or more likely nowadays, it's going to the Housing Appeals.
So the
Board.
housing appeals.
The Housing Appeals Board is coming at this from a very different angle.
Right.
They're basically, it's almost a little bit of a hostility there.
Yeah.
And it was created by the legislature just to tell the towns, what are you doing here?
Right.
Why are you guys standing in the way of housing?
Right.
And so my worry is we say, no, can't
Right.
do this. You gotta do it,
Right,
one huge building.
right, your master plan says you want density, but you're telling somebody, well, we really don't want density.
Say it's the 30-acre law, you said
It's the
gotta
30
make
acre law.
120 units in one building.
Right,
The developers, that's crazy. Because they have, the article you sent me, there's like the cost, you showed me that cost there.
oh, yeah,
You get a certain level, you can't build it out of wood, it has to be steel
Right.
structure, it's gonna be Dartmouth Hitchcock, basically,
Right.
it's gonna be a humongous.
right, if I
Building.
put a carport that's connected to this building over here, is that one building?
And
Or
one
is
other
that
thing,
two?
one other point I would like to make.
Accessory building describes it.
So the accessory building is a good argument, except as you read the accessory building definition,
Right,
it says right there, for the shelter of people, animals, and property.
it's not an accessory.
So if somebody built multifamily,
Rob.
that's the headquarters,
You're not,
that's the accessory.
No.
It says right there, Tim, people.
there's
In
no
the-
way
in the
you can
accessory.
interpret an accessory building being subordinate to the principal structure, having a roof and walls built and primarily intended to form a structure for shelter of people.
I'm
That's
telling you,
not,
take that to the
that
House
is
of
not
Appeals
an
Board, you're
apartment
gonna lose.
building.
What's that?
That's not an apartment building.
Shelter of people.
It's not that's not what that says.
I take you to the House of Appeals Board. See what it says, see what they say.
And see, of course, what we're pointing out is when we rewrite this thing,
It needs to be better.
we've got to have a lot better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Precise language.
I mean, basically, we are in the position for the next year and a half or so, where we've got a master plan that says one thing, and our zoning ordinances need to catch up with the intent or recommendation of the master plan. And it's kind of like a real awkward situation.
Yeah, and so what Kurt and I are suggesting is that we, now that the procedure's kind of been laid out here, that I'll make a motion that we, see, how would you word that? That we have determined that the,
Good, no, good, no, good. I'm just gonna say, I think the same thing is that we have made a determination that the language reflects plural as described by Jim.
okay, so that's,
Rob, I mean.
that's the motion you want to make.
No, well, I'm not sure that's the motion I want to make exactly, but that's is the intent, I think.
That's what you think our own zoning ordinance says.
I'm thinking it's unclear. I think your analysis and Kurt's analysis has brought up a very good point. And he's reading it as plural, and we as a group can come together and saying, for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
We're gonna use the plural as he has been using in practice. Then when we get to Brandy and the rewrite, we make
sure the rewrite
sure
makes
it makes
the
sense.
rewrite is not unclear.
and it's clearer.
Okay, so the only drawback to that is if an abutter challenges a development where we've allowed, say, the 6 buildings on
Yep.
one lot.
Yep.
I think they've got a pretty good argument that we've misinterpreted our zoning ordinance. That's what we're saying.
Right,
Well,
and
we could say that, but we could also point to the fact that all along it's been implemented consistently.
right, and the same abutter could come in if we go the other way. And say,
Well, hasn't been interpreted consistently.
Yeah, with Anderson Hill.
Anderson Hill is
On one lot.
on one lot.
Look it up here. What was Anderson?
No kidding.
Anderson Hill, the condos.
Oh, the
Are
condo,
they on one lot?
because there are single family homes there.
There are single
Yeah.
family, but there also is the condos. They're multi-families.
Let me see if I can pull it up here. Hold on a sec. GIS,
Well, you know what the problem with those, I bet, are?
pre-zoning.
Pre-zoning.
Yeah.
That's pre-zoning. That's
Before-
pre-1990.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
I didn't know it been
Condos
there that
are.
long.
the condos have been there pre-1990.
Are those condos all in one building?
They're fours, no, they're 4 and 4.
There's separate
They're
buildings.
separate buildings, 4 and 4.
Trying to get there here, so. Here. Anderson Hill Road.
Mhm.
That's what it says. Yeah,
That's it.
that's it.
One lot,
One lot.
many buildings,
Yep.
Yeah,
but
those have
that's
been
pre-zoning.
pre-zoning.
It's
Doesn't
pre-zoning.
matter, does it?
Well, Rob, have you had a developer? Who you've advised?
Since I've been here, no. No, it says it.
No, I mean, same thing with Lakeview. Lakeview is. They're not individual lots.
So we really haven't exercised this.
No, right,
Yeah, Lakeview's multiple buildings.
multiple buildings on one lot.
Yeah, and I recommend that we stick with the principal building, the concept that one building per lot, which is we've laid it out. It says that 2 or 3 times, it's self-supporting on all of, every time it's mentioned. And that be our interpretation going forward.
Are you gonna put that in the motion?
Okay,
I thought we had a motion on the floor.
I think you just made a motion on it.
I never heard it seconded.
I can second it.
Okay,
I don't remember the motion.
His motion is that it is plural. That you can put more than one building on a lot.
More than one principal building. And
More than one principal building on the lot,
despite
which is what his is Rob's interpretation.
And that's been seconded by you?
Yeah.
And made by you?
okay. All in
Not very
favor,
clearly.
is there
Can
any?
you read back the
further dis-
motion to me, please?
Yeah, the board has determined that the language of the ordinance reflects, multiple principal buildings as described by Mr. Taylor.
Well,
On the same lot.
On the same lot.
well, you need to be a little more specific than that, because I think what you're saying is, you're saying that you could have multiple multifamily buildings on one lot,
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
not single-family homes.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
You're
Right.
In the R1 district served by municipal sewer.
And that's what you said?
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah, that's his interpretation.
but then I thought you.
He said the opposite.
I'm gonna
said the
vote
opposite.
no on the motion. Because I don't think that's correct.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, I agree with you.
Okay.
So,
Or we may have a tie, you know.
Okay, so is there further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion? And if you vote yes, it means that you get to put more than one multifamily building on a single lot.
Correct.
If you vote no, you're limited to one single-family building on a lot.
No, wouldn't you have to wait for another motion?
one
Well, you-
primary building.
You will.
You'd have to put another motion.
You'd have to-
It wasn't just defeated a
It's
motion.
not either
Okay.
or.
But I'll know based on the
Well,
guidance.
Right,
Yeah.
you'll know based on the guidance.
I don't think you have to vote twice, but if you want to, you can.
Yeah.
So, all in favor of Brad's motion indicate by saying aye.
I,
Opposed,
so
so we're tied.
So you have no,
You have no
I have
guidance.
no guidance, no clarity.
Could we get an advisory opinion from the two
What?
alternates?
no, because they can't say.
No, well, I know, but could we get an advisory opinion from the
You
two?
could have the same vote next time when he's here, so you have an odd
So
number.
clearly there's enough confusion that it would be good to have more clarity on this.
Well, what I suggested is that this question be presented to town council and let them advise us as to what the answer is.
And when I took that to the town manager, he said, absolutely, when we have an application.
Right, when there's an
And-
application.
Perhaps he would reconsider, considering that we have a very evenly divided board when, after debating the question.
And we need to know, before you get a conceptual put in front of you, and you need to advise the developer.
Again, I come down.
Right.
This is what you said. It's really semantics. I mean.
Right.
If somebody builds a private road, they'll have the frontage.
Right.
They can subdivide, no problem.
They can subdivide, yeah.
So
They
this
don't
is
have to
really-
tell you, they don't have
This
to
is
tell you
not
what they're putting
stopping
on the
anybody from
building.
Doing anything.
No, they don't even
That's
tell you
bad
what they're
policy
putting
that
on
you
the,
guys are
on the
throwing out
lot.
here. Because guess what? They can subdivide and the net result is what you said.
Right.
Joe's building is beautiful. Look at that. Bill's building is terrible. It's a piece of crap. He doesn't maintain it.
Right.
You got these conflicts of ownership
But don't
coming out.
interpret the ordinance because you want it to read a certain way.
Right,
It is what it is.
oh, I agree.
I'm interpreting it as I read it. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as we both are. So,
Right.
And this is a relatively short-term problem until we rewrite.
Yeah,
right,
Well,
except for.
you could fix it wait, you could fix it in March,
What would you like?
right? And
What would
what
you
would
like?
you like?
We could, except for the fact that if the pressure you're seeing is building and you're gonna get inundated with
Yeah,
proposals, then
if you've got two that most likely would have to be getting in a variance if it was interpreted the other way,
right.
Or they're gonna subdivide.
or they're gonna subdivide.
Is one of the goals that's been discussed for the rewrite is to have the zoning reflect what currently exists, right?
All right.
So this currently exists, right? That's what we were just looking at, even if it
Lakeview
happened
condos,
before the
Right.
zoning was established, this is.
And I'll give you an example. So Lakeview, one complex, multiple buildings.
Right.
They negotiated with the town to help them
It's a,
connect up to sewer.
right,
If it was multiple owners, I don't think that project happens.
Well, wait, hang on.
Yeah.
I will be a supporter of.
Yep.
Of being able to do a Lakeview, being able to do.
Right.
Whatever.
Yep.
Certainly. I
it's just trying to make the ordinance tell you that you can do it.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I want it to say
Yeah,
what you guys, some of you think it should say,
right, right,
right.
but that's not.
It doesn't say it.
So,
right,
without clarity, when you guys
Without
give me
clarity.
clarity,
right.
when
Your
it comes
stand
time,
at
I'm
this
gonna
point.
make my decision and we'll see what the zoning board says. If somebody challenges it, if nobody challenges it,
Right,
done.
So there's a second half, oh, sorry.
Yes, let's go back to that.
Back to what?
This is the second half of this document. Where are we going? How far down?
Right there.
You mean we're only halfway through?
yeah, there's a second question, there was a second question here.
Okay,
It says
go ahead.
for the same scenario, how many dwelling units would be allowed in the multifamily building without a special exception or variance?
So,
For my hypothetical 30 acre, 120,
Single lot.
single lot's 120.
And what is your contention?
okay. So we have to look at, the phrase, or the section, K, section K. Scroll down a little bit, or the other way, I'm sorry.
Up?
Yeah.
Right,
Right. Now let's consider question 2. Yeah, okay, so there's the controlling, paragraph, K.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what does K mean? And Kurt and I looked at this every way to Sunday, and so now scroll down and we'll see what we're suggesting. So minimum lot size shall be 1 acre except for dwellings. Now it's not directly related to the argument here, but it just means that all other permitted uses require at least 1 acre. But you kind of have to stretch your head there to
right, to get there.
understand that, but anyway. So for dwellings, the minimum lot size could be something other than 1 acre, and indeed, the next phrase, in which minimum lot size shall be 1 acre per dwelling unit. And dwelling unit, if you wanted to go back up to the definition of unit, it talks about how it's essentially an apartment with on-lot water and sewer supply. So we've amended that to, if this was not on municipal sewer, and then describes there about what that, scroll on down a little bit. So, for a 5 acre parcel with on-site septic, you could have 5 dwelling units,
Right.
just like you said. Dan,
I thought we're confining this discussion
I
to
know.
municipal
I
sewer
know,
and water.
that's because there's 2 separate clauses in this section.
Right.
One deals with one deals with on-site septic, the other deals with municipal sewer.
Right,
The next phrase, but the lot may be 1/4 acre lot size for a dwelling where municipal sewer is used. So yes, that means the dwelling can be sited on as little as 1/4 acre lot. Now, the phrase we're examining here does not say 1/4 acre per dwelling unit. It says 1/4 acre per dwelling.
But the definition of dwelling is a privately or publicly owned building containing a dwelling unit or dwelling units, plural. So therefore, if you had multiple dwelling units
In a principal building.
in a principal building, you are limited by the number of acres times 4,
Right,
correct?
correct.
Well, that's,
Do you see that?
no, that's
How
not
do you-
what that says.
Well, what does it say
All right.
by your interpretation?
So section K, the first section says, maybe in terms of, lot size, maybe 1/4 acre per lot size for a dwelling or municipal, sorry, back up, Rod. Right there. Minimum lot size should be 1 acre per dwelling unit with on-lot water and sewer supply, full stop. Then you go down to the but maybe 1/4 acre per lot size for a dwelling where municipal sewer is used.
Isn't your contention here, because.
So you're saying you can't have more than 4 apartments in any building?
No. Our contention is that, because that says a privately or publicly owned building containing a dwelling unit or dwelling units, in other words, maybe 1/4 acre per lot size for a dwelling where municipal sewer is used, right?
Yeah,
So you can have a 1/4 acre lot. You can put a dwelling on it. We all agree with
Right.
that. So what is a dwelling? A dwelling is a building containing a dwelling unit or dwelling units.
units,
That's the definition.
That's a statement. It can be
That's a statement.
either or.
right.
So
I still say it's 120.
how many apartments then could you put in that dwelling that you put on 1/4 acre?
Well, it's not on a 1/4 acre. We're talking about a 30 acre lot, are we not?
This is whatever example you want to use.
Well, if you're talking about a 1/4 acre lot, you're talking about one dwelling.
Yeah.
If you're talking about a 30
Well,
acre,
what's the definition of the dwelling?
Well, yeah,
a building containing a dwelling unit or units.
so are you saying you could put an unlimited number of dwelling units on a 1/4 acre lot, as long as you can meet the setbacks?
And
Right.
all of the general criteria that fall.
Oh, yeah.
To the, yes,
Right.
that's what
Yeah.
we're saying. That's what
Yeah,
we're saying,
well-
the word it says.
I might just throw this in there, because I know that we've had this discussion.
And I can go 35 feet high.
In the
I was gonna
other,
say, you're gonna have a skyscraper.
Well,
In the
no, I'm
other
gonna 35
zone-
feet. I'm gonna have Gursky's house,
Okay.
by Crystal Lake.
just to throw it out there, the R3, doesn't it give us a little bit more clarity, Tim, in
It
the
does.
formula?
It clearly does, and the reason for that, we point that out, the reason for that is in the R3 zone, you don't have municipal sewer.
Right,
Yeah, I get it.
So clearly
Yeah, you're limited.
you're limited.
you're limited to the lot size.
Mhm.
Now, that's an imperfect kind of bludgeon to
Right.
use to say, how many units can we put on a lot?
Right.
In a R3 zone? We're picking a number out of the air and saying it's 3.
Yeah, where it could be 8. Because on a 1/4 acre, you could get 8 apartments, because I can go 35 feet high. And I could put 8 1-bedrooms or 8 studios
So the
and still meet that setback.
next paragraph, to better illustrate our conclusion. Bottom there, just scroll up a little bit. Take out the whole thing about the water and sewer. Just take that phrase out and you can read the sentence without it. I mean, take out the section about unlocked water and sewer supply. That's in the dark gray. You read that sentence and
Right,
what does it say there?
it'll be 1/4 acre lot size for a dwelling unit. For a dwelling where municipal sewer is used.
And our definition of dwelling is?
It has two definitions. It can be either a single dwelling unit or it can have multiple dwelling units.
This is saying one dwelling,
The garage can be for one car or three cars.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Exactly.
If you scroll on down a little bit further. We suggest that, and again, here, Rob, we're bringing up what you were just talking about.
Yep.
If the intention was to tie the number of dwelling units in a multifamily building served by municipal sewer to lot size, then why didn't they include this language that you see in R3 and R5 to clearly show you that that's being determined by lot size?
Oversight.
Well, yeah,
Probably.
probably,
So if you drop on down,
because we changed the R1 and we didn't touch the R3s and 5s.
right?
That's why.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think
you
a
know,
court would look at it and say, yeah, we follow the methodology elsewhere in the ordinance. This clearly is the methodology here.
Right,
But I agree, it should be, the calculation should be there in the R1.
So what our conclusion is, the ordinance just doesn't say what the limit is.
Yeah.
So what is that, what are you left with? Well, you take a lot and you say, gosh, how big a building can you get on? How many apartments can you get in there? It depends on the setback, frontage, parking, all of that stuff. It will naturally limit itself.
oh, it will. It may not limit it as small as people think though.
Take a 30-acre lot. Now, if we prevail in our interpretation that, number one, you've got to subdivide that lot for each
Right.
apartment building you want to put on it.
Right.
How many units then can you put in each apartment building? We say our zoning ordinance is silent on that. That would be determined by all the other factors, including site plan.
I would suggest that after you do the subdivision, you know how many
You know
acres
exactly
you
how many
have.
units you can put.
And then you apply the, quarter or four
Per
dwelling units per acre.
So that comes back then to us voting on how we interpret the ordinance to give Rob some direction.
It kind of does.
So this one is actually the opposite of your stance on the first one. Because we know what it says now. It says you can put as many units as you can fit on the lot.
Well, that's what you would vote.
Well, no, that's but what I'm saying is you and Kurt had one interpretation of the first one
Yes.
based on the word dwellings.
Right.
Where this one is the exact opposite. You're saying, we know what it says, but this is what it should say.
No, we're not. They're two separate sections.
Right, I know, but this is clear to me. As it stands right now, this one's clear. In that I can put as many dwellings as will fit on the unit, on it, because it says unit or units. I can put as many as will fit. This one's clear to me.
I think we need some professional feedback.
I do too.
Yeah,
Guidance.
yeah, so do I. And is it legal or is it branded? Probably not branded.
All right, I make a motion that the board passes a resolution stating as follows. The Enfield Planning Board has discussed the density allowable in the R1 district and is unable to reach a conclusion. We therefore request that legal guidance from the town council be obtained. I think the wording can probably be improved.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded.
Discussion
Discussion
on both questions.
Yeah.
On
Well,
both questions.
on both questions. I mean,
Right.
they're interrelated.
They're interrelated.
Both questions, so what's the second question?
The one plus the first one that we came out as a tie.
All I would say, first discussion on the second question, is that we have 30+ years of interpretation of that to hang our hats on.
Right.
And that has been exactly as you suspect, and that is the acreage, exactly what we just talked about.
Right.
You have, 1 acre with water and sewer. Now with our quarter acre, you have four dwelling units.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that has weight.
Right. Oh, I do too.
The precedent that the towns.
You can't change
Right.
midstream and say, oh, we're now interpreting this differently.
Right.
Right.
If it goes to court, somebody's saying, well, how have you been doing it? Well, this is how we've been
This
doing
was
it.
how we've been doing
That's
it.
how you should
Right.
continue to do it,
Right,
Unless you change the wording.
right.
Linda?
A comment you made, Rob, was that our goals would be to do things as they have been done. And, I was here long before Lakeview. And I watched what happened there. Lakeview isn't a place you really want to own or live in. It had a lot of, well, they sell, but not because they're so pleasant. The reason that zoning was, considered and debated and passed was that people were horrified when Lakeview was built as it was and that it could happen again. And that was the motivation, not because they did it. It was to prevent that from happening again. And that was all the people who were defending trailer parks and defending, nobody's gonna tell me what to do with my land. Everyone came together and passed it because of Lakeview. And so it's just, my point is that I just don't feel that, oh, because we should match what's already there. What was there was a motivation to write something.
I think what he's saying is match what we've always been saying and doing until we change it with the written word.
Right.
Right, but it has to be things that were done under zoning.
Right, not
And,
prior to.
and
Right.
Lakeview
Right.
was way before
Consistent
zoning.
when you adopt zoning, and this
Right.
rule has been on the books. It needs to be consistent. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
It's kind of like, I don't know, if you deal with police matters, they have to be consistent. Can't
Right.
be all over the place.
Yeah.
We've always let it go 10 miles an hour over the speed limit.
But,
But today we're hammering you.
but
The court will say, hey, wait a second,
the
you let
laws,
these guys go.
laws all the time are interpreted one way and
Right.
court actions will,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Oh,
Roe
yeah.
versus Wade, it's right there,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's really kind of what we're at here is.
Yeah.
yeah,
Interpreting
interpretation.
our ordinance.
Right.
So we have a motion on the table.
we do have a motion on the floor, on the table, wherever it is. It has been seconded. Is there any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, and essentially the motion says the board would like legal interpretation of these two questions from town council, because we are very divided and we don't know what it means. Yeah, I'll let Whitney kind of clean it up for me.
Yeah, the board passes a resolution stating as follows. The Enfield Planning Board has discussed the density allowable in the R1 district and is unable to reach a conclusion. We therefore request that legal guidance from town council be obtained.
Everybody happy with that wording?
Well, it's actually, I think it's more narrow than that. I don't know that any other section in the ordinance that deals with the word density necessarily is controversial, or that we don't understand what it says. It's really the question of, as I originally proposed it,
Principal buildings.
yeah, the board has, discussed the question is, how many apartment buildings can you put on one lot in the R1 district served by municipal sewer? And the follow-up question is, in those apartment buildings, what is the limitation on the number of units allowed? Those are the two questions. Very specific.
Basically, these are the questions that you stated in your analysis. So all we're trying to accomplish with this resolution is getting it to the town attorney. And once we convince our town manager, and I have confidence that this resolution will provide at least some motivation for him to change his mind. We get it to the town council and it becomes more of a discussion rather than just the two questions. We can elaborate and we go that way. So.
Okay.
All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Nobody? Abstentions? Nobody? No one?
I'm not abstaining.
Okay,
I voted yes.
okay, I thought you voted yes.
I did.
So that is the resolution that we passed. And when Ed comes back from his vacation, we will have two things to discuss with him.
It's probably an application in hand.
We've got all our bases covered.
Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to him today, so he's actually supportive of what you guys just threw out there.
Right.
He actually wants, if we do have an application in our hands,
We're gonna have to get it.
he wants the attorney to come in before the meeting,
Mhm.
as you guys can meet
Executive
closed
session.
doors with your attorney
Mhm.
for consultation
Mhm.
and clarity.
Right.
So I think he's supportive of that. I think he would absolutely.
Okay.
Our town council has got him, Michael Courtney.
Yeah.
Get him in here, shut that door, or go into a different room. When we had consult with our attorney for the planning board, we went into this office here and closed the door because we had so many people
Well,
here waiting.
he wants it in hand because at that point, it's not hypothetical.
Correct.
As is most of the discussion we've been having lately as being hypothetical.
Right.
But David,
Not really.
you press this issue with Ed. I think you need to emphasize that we need to know this. We need to know what our ordinance says before we get an application.
Right.
Yeah.
I do know that he will say, the question of can it be done is not your
Right.
purview. That's his own work.
That's the
You guys are how it's done,
right.
site plan,
However, we are responsible for writing the zoning
which is
ordinance.
why I think he's supportive of that.
And if we don't know what we wrote or our predecessors wrote, then we ought to get some
I would
clarification.
love clarity too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what I was hoping was gonna happen tonight, but
No,
we're hung jury.
we're divided.
right.
Eric had to be off vacation.
Yeah.
Okay, Tim, are we finished with this discussion?
Well, thank you.
Okay, I do believe that was the last agenda item.
Just to report, I am working on the schedule that I suggested we ought to have.
Yeah,
So,
good.
Maybe I'll have something on that meeting.
Okay,
I make a motion that we
Second.
All right, motion to adjourn has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Thanks.
Aye, aye, opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned at 8:20.
Is there anything, Rob, on the agenda for next time, other than
Rob,
Yeah,
do you know?
Brandy, other than Brandy?
um,
Yes, yes, got it. Okay.